Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. I hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. And despite a phenomenal weekend of Call of Duty back in a LAN environment, a lot of discussion has been raised with regard to the relatively poor viewership. Is there other factors that are not being considered here? What can we do to improve it in the future? And why is it lagging behind other esports at the present time? And tweet your thoughts in the comment section below. Like if you guys enjoyed the video, subscribe if you were new as always. I greatly appreciate it. It really helps out the channel. Thank you very much indeed for doing that. First of all, wanted to mention this for the subliner side. On Sunday, June the 11th, or July the 11th, sorry, June the 11th as long gone. There, I believe for the new subliners home series, I'm pretty sure it's going to be hosted by them. They're going to do this hosting thing. They're doing a Helix Esports, so tickets now live. Sunday, July the 11th. You got the flag. It's going to be done live. Meet and greet with some of the guys that are over there. So pretty cool stuff to be honest. And I thought I'd mention it if you guys happen to be in the area. Talking of subliners, wanted to mention this, which is kind of a crazy statistic, which is control as much of a swing mode as people say it is. If you're subliners, it certainly is. Every time they have won a control, they won the series, but they only have a 13-21 win record on control. So overall, about 78% of the time the team wins the control, that team wins the series. So pretty interesting statistic. That kind of makes sense, I suppose. Like if you win the control 80% of the time you win the series, that is quite an important statistic. Now subliners, out of 13 times they've won the control, they've also won the series every single time. When they lose the control then, therefore it's not looking too good for them. So interesting stuff. I suppose it does also show how good subliners hardpoint has been when they unfortunately had to sub out a scene for Decimated the Major before they had to do that, because they were like 0-5 with Decimated hardpoint, but before that they were completely dominant in the modes, because if they win the control they're probably going to win at least one of the hardpoints, if not both of them, and that's going to be enough to get over the line in this series. So interesting statistical stuff nonetheless. And let's talk about this then, because of course this weekend, Clayster, as you can see right here, getting super hyped, back on LAN. But there was a lot going on this weekend right now. There's a lot of talk about all these all the other things that are going on in the world. It's summertime, things are actually finally opening up, people can actually go out and do stuff. This past weekend was Father's Day weekend as well. There's so many sporting things on right now in terms of the Euros over in Europe, and there's basketball on in the States and stuff, and a lot of it is competing for viewership with Call of Duty. And maybe the CDL could structure their season better so that they don't necessarily fall foul of some of these issues, but as of late the viewership this weekend was not exactly ideal. This is what Octane says: man, for how incredible this weekend has felt from a player perspective and how nuts some of the matches have been, viewership has been kind of in the bin. Now look, this always happens every single season. I don't know why people get surprised about this. Every time it starts off really hot, then I was actually kind of surprised at how well it maintained viewership throughout stage 2, stage 3, and now it's fallen off a little bit for stage 4, stage 5, and then it will come back for champs. That's always how it goes every single time. So I don't really know why people are surprised. At the same time, look, the CDL is an official league now. People were hoping that it would hit the amount of viewers that Valorant and stuff is doing. Now, at the same time, the Valorant viewership isn't exactly spectacular. I tuned in a little bit to whatever tournament they had on recently. The main stream had 50, 60, 70k or whatever. It was the co-streaming that was bumping it up into almost the millions, which is crazy to think about. Now, look, I'm confident that the CDL will not necessarily come to their senses, but look, YouTube, I think, in some aspects has been really good for the CDL. Watching the stream is great. You can rewind, you can pause, all that stuff is fantastic. You can watch VOD, the VOD on demand, video on demand, after the fact is just so much better than it can be on Twitch. So I hope that they don't just end the YouTube deal and just go over to Twitch and have a Twitch deal. I'd love them to just have it on all platforms, right? Have it on YouTube if you want, because I think a lot of people have really enjoyed the YouTube experience from other different perspectives. We'll talk about that here in a second. But the Twitch side of things as well, it's I'd love to see it stream there, because that's where most right now live streaming content is. That's where you're going to get higher peak viewership, I would imagine, on the streams, and that's also more than likely where you're going to find co-streaming can actually work to great effect. If you go to a Nick Merckx or whatever and just say, look, do you want to just co-stream all the CDL matches, which right now he can't do, and I'm sure Nature would want to do it, and other massive personalities would want to do it as well, Courage, for example, even though Courage is on YouTube, so maybe they could make that work. But right now they can't do it on Twitch because they've got the YouTube partnership in place. Now, if they were to do that, Nick Merckx could sit there with 60,000 views watching FaZe versus OpTic, just bringing in so many new people to the scene, which would be incredible. I think the CDL absolutely have to find a way to try and make this work. So, this is what Semtexable says a couple of days ago, because this is, of course, the grand finals on the Major now. One of the reasons why this wasn't great is that I was watching this at 3 a.m, right? It finished at basically 3 in the morning, this grand finals on the Major in Europe. Now, that's in the UK. In mainland Europe, it's an hour further back, or even worse than that. So, at the end of the day, a lot of the times that the viewership isn't necessarily too great for the later matches in the day, it's because a lot of the European guys have got to sleep, and understandably so. So they don't necessarily make it work too perfectly. If on the grand finals day it was only just the grand finals or something at the perfect peak hours, 9 p.m. or something in the UK, then that would be perfect for everyone. But still not, I don't think, not great. And I think this is kind of interesting that a few people are pointing out the fact that Scump had actually liked this tweet, because of course, we know that OpTic brings in the viewership. OpTic always always has the highest, most viewed matches. And if OpTic were in the grand finals, I'm sure the viewership would have been phenomenal, but doesn't happen. Of course, Scump, not necessarily like making fun of the stream, but certainly probably looking at things and thinking like, look, if I was involved, then we'd have way more viewers than they currently have. And looking at the fan base, maybe of these some other teams not necessarily being where it needs to be. I think it did peak a little bit higher than this. We'll have a look at here in just a second. These were the peak viewership for the entire major. So it was Dallas versus OpTic that peaked at 86,000 viewers on the final day. Then the first series they played peaked at 76,000. Another series that OpTic played against Seattle peaked at 76k as well. It was actually Los Angeles Thieves series on the first day that was interesting. That was up there as well. And then the final series, the grand finals, finished at 65,000 in terms of a peak viewership fashion. But I don't really think that peak viewership tells the entire story here, because as Chrome points out, this is the peak viewership so far in the majors so far. So in stage 4, like 86k doesn't look particularly special compared to Major 1, Major 2, and especially Major 3. This is the Toronto Ultra versus OpTic Chicago match, but especially because we go back to LAN, right? But I think a lot of people would argue that there's a lot of other things going on right now that people are watching instead of competitive Call of Duty. And if you look at the VOD numbers, it's actually a very different story. I think this is what people are talking less about. Like, look at the VOD views for this major. Like, this major was by far the most viewed out of any. We'll have to look at some of their, I suppose I can throw the screenshot up here in just a couple of seconds. This also excludes all the single match views, right? So this is just the VODs. Like, what's the total viewership between all the VODs that people clicked on? Now, of course, the Saturday was incredibly long, and I think, like, if people click off the VOD and then they come back on, that counts as another view. So, like, the longer match days are going to give you situations like this. But still, like, you look at these figures, it tells a different story. And there's probably two reasons for this, right? The peak viewership is low, but the actual VOD views is high. Shows that there's at least some interest in competitive Call of Duty. And I think the YouTube is definitely geared towards watching things after the fact rather than live. So there's two reasons for this. Possibly, like, the CDL, there's a lot of other things just going on right now. People want to watch other things. Their Father's Day was going on, like, they want to watch the golf, they want to watch the football, whatever the case may be. They want to watch the basketball, and catch up on Call of Duty later. The other side of things is the stream just too boring, right? I think from a lot of people's perspective, the stream is very repetitive. It's the same thing every single time. The music, they do sometimes change it up, but almost everything is just done by the book, and like every single stream is exactly the same. Doesn't matter if it's for the major or for the regular season. It just always looks the same. There's nothing going on special. There's no teleprompter coming up. There's no breaking down interesting strategies. There's no like celebrating the best Call of Duty you can have. It's always the same type of thing, and I think that does turn a lot of people away from watching it live. And then you've got all the adverts on top of things, which of course they didn't have this past major really, because there was some like they were switching over to some new advertising platform. But I'm sure Dragons and the other ones will be back in full force going forwards, no doubt about it, which probably means that people are very much incentivized to not watch live and just watch after the fact. And I imagine people watch my videos, or people watch the Flank, for example, and maybe they like see a match that they thought was interesting and go back and watch it. But these are some of the viewers as of late, right? We can see that a lot of these matches, for example against Rokkr, like that's 91k on its own. I mean the stream on day 3 and day 4 both has 1.3 million views, the VOD for these matches. So it's not like people don't care about competitive Call of Duty, and YouTube is so much better for watching video after the fact than we are on Twitch, right? Which is why I hope we stay on YouTube, at least to some degree, right? Maybe not as like a full-blown partnership though, because I think there's a lot of benefits to being on Twitch. So that's just my 2 cents on the matter. I think a lot of people look at the peak viewership as like the one and the only metric, but there's a lot of other things involved here that I think people are discussing in great detail. And this is some discussion on it as well. So as Zero says, honestly, Sam, I said it a while back, the league matches and champs only being the top 8 kind of kills the enjoyment of watching. Not saying the COD viewership has been unreal before this, but some teams having the season chalked before champs is just so dumb. We kind of talked about that earlier today. As Doug says, I think they're trying to replicate real sports leagues, but the problem is we only have 12 teams. We need more teams, more personalities, more opportunities to play with the pool play matches, for example. I always dislike the whole separation of teams as well. The fact that it's a 6-6 split in the league games. I agree with you, Trey. I hope that we can get expansion and do more with the format. 12 teams is difficult to do too much variation. As Parasite as well, he's talking about Twitch right here. They don't play the game that's the same game the pros do, says Pac-Man, which is true to some degree. I'm not sure that's really the only reason though, as Parasite says, not to mention the competitive playlist we play is literally horrible and a zero incentive playing. This I think is a fantastic point, because as Courage is talking about it right here, for me the biggest thing that every other top esport has is competitive and an exciting ranked play system. COD ranked has always been horrible. There's no entrance to it to Smirk. You have to be introduced to it. Of course this will always be number one. So much potential. Want CDL to be successful so badly. And some discussion right here is that Merc saying he's pushed for this for years, but only if I could make the game, I suppose, right? And saying how like I tried to make this happen, but it just didn't work the way I expected it to. And as he's saying right here, just imagine a world in which we could stream some Warzone, lobbies aren't going our way, switch over and do a road to diamond with a Maven, for example, in the Masters playlist, introduce people to competitive COD, can do that one day or another. And this is something that I found when I got into Counter-Strike. I don't really follow it it too much anymore, but when I started playing that game a few years ago, like, you go into the game, the ranked playlist is so accessible, and all you have to do is load into CSGO, and there's like a stream embedded right there of the top tournament that's going on right now. You can go to one of the tabs on the side and like watch all the VODs of the games, or you can watch them like in the theater mode type thing they have in CSGO. So like, that was so important to me, to going into the game and having an incredibly accessible ranked playlist, which is also very good and very playable, and has the rank that you can work up to over time, and just the way the entire game was structured just got me into like Counter-Strike esports and watching it a little bit at the very least, almost immediately. And the CDL and Call of Duty just never gives itself that luxury. So I think there's so many things that like, I don't know, I'm so confident in the CDL long term that it can work, and I just think, yeah, I love the competitive Call of Duty scene. I think we have a great community. I think we have great personalities in the pro scene, but there's just so many things that every single year are holding us back, and I just don't think that talking about a peak viewership number is quite getting across all of the intricacies and the nuances of this situation. To finish out the video with a couple of things, wanted to mention this from round 11 stats. In stage 4 only, Paris Legion had a search and destroy round win percentage higher than the Dallas Empire. This was quite interesting, right, because stage was 7-4, but they actually had a negative round win percentage because they got blown out like 6-1 in quite a couple that round 11 stats talks about in the replies right here. But it was actually Legion and Empire right up there, and impressive, right, because Empire search and destroy, especially given the amount of good teams they had to play to get a record like this, was not great at all before Vivid. So Vivid, some significant improvements coming out of those guys, and just wanted to finish off with this absolutely marvelous clip that you guys may or may not have seen already. Of course, if you watched the game, you will have seen it, but I just thought it was worth playing again because Shotzzy's movement is just so buttery. Like, watch this guy go around the map. The fact that he even gets this kill on, I think it was on Cammy just a second here, like, Cammy dies to Shotzzy doing a jump shot over that, and then he goes on to do this. I'll have to play it on the big screen because it's just so beautiful to see what Call of Duty can be like, and I suppose I just hope we got more viewers to see this on a regular basis. But enjoy your thoughts on all this in the comment section below. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did enjoy it, I'd greatly appreciate a like on the video. Really helps out the YouTube algorithm. Like, you enjoyed this content, other people like you may enjoy this content as well, and have grown the competitive Call of Duty community. Thank you much, as always. Take care, and I will see you next time.
Well, it feels it's just like one of those plays.
He's disgusting.
Yeah, it's just his ability to stay alive. But yeah, I think CleanX was just hoping that maybe his teammates can get to top green a little quicker. And he's put in an awkward position, right? Do I slay inside of bricks? Do I just wait for them? And maybe the better call was just for him to slay a little bit forward, but they were trying to get on that point, and instead of doing that, now they're in a tough spot. Shotzzy on 5 in a row.
Yeah, he just does not look fun to play against at all. The movement on point, the shot.
Now they're in a tough spot. Shotzzy on 5 in a row.
He just does not look fun to play against at all.